Good afternoon, and thank you very much for coming to Toronto Police Headquarters. Today, I'd like to introduce to you Superintendent Pauline of Sex Crimes with the Toronto Police and Detective Inspector Darren Webster of the Ontario Provincial Police. They are here today to announce an arrest in a multi-jurisdictional sexual assault investigation. Superintendent?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for making the time to come today. I'm Superintendent Pauline Gray of the Toronto Police Service, and with me is Detective Inspector Darren Webster of the OPP, and of course, the dedicated group of investigators who've been working on this case since day one. Previously provided for you are the finer points of the 4 investigations, 3 here in Toronto and 1 in Collingwood. All of the incidents involved one man allegedly sexually assaulting 4 different women, and as a result, we had 4 DNA profiles without a comparison sample. With the usual unparalleled cooperation of our partners at CFS, the combined efforts of 2 investigative units, one from Toronto and the other from the OPP, and the guidance of the multi-jurisdictional major case manager, Sean Glassford, of the OPP, we are here to advise that we have a man in custody, and that is Mr. Dipesh Patel. Although I'm mindful and incredibly proud of the collaboration and tenacity of both teams of investigators who never gave up finding this person, I want to speak to the unbelievable commitment on the part of our 4 survivors who were the victims of these violent crimes. It is they who ultimately provided the evidence to catch this man. I'm grateful to them for coming forward and sharing their stories and trusting us with those stories. Know that you are our heroes. We, the police, often say in press conferences just like this that it is just one small detail that can make the difference between having a solved case or an unsolved one. It is true. In this case, it was a license plate. Armed with that information and the evidence provided from the Center of Forensic Sciences, we were able to link all 4 of the cases and bring some measure of peace to our victims. It is not lost on me or the professional members of the respective agencies that coming forward to report a sexual assault is not an easy decision. But if there are other women or girls, if other women or girls recognize this man and have information that could further our case, please contact us. If you do not wish to contact police, please visit our website, yourchoice.to, where you will find an abundance of supportive information to assist you. And at this time, I will call on my colleague from the OPP to comment further.
Thank you, Superintendent Gray, and good afternoon. My name is Darren Webster. I'm a Detective Inspector with the Ontario Provincial Police Criminal Investigation Branch. The cases being discussed today have been part of an ongoing joint investigation between the Toronto Police Service Sex Crimes Unit and the Ontario Provincial Police Criminal Investigation Branch. This joint partnership commenced after our second offense that occurred in January of 2017. We're grateful for the work of the Toronto Police Service investigators and the Ontario Provincial Police investigators. They never gave up, and they were committing to finding the person responsible. As the major case manager, I know firsthand the significance and importance of joint partnerships and sharing information. Policing in today's environment requires us to work seamlessly and without borders to combat crime and ensure our communities are safe. Our partnership with the Toronto Police Service and the cooperation from the Centre of Forensic Science has been vital in solving this case. It's not only helped confirm that these sexual assaults were committed by the same individual, but it has also led to the arrest of the perpetrator. We're pleased to be able to identify and arrest the individual responsible for these horrific assaults. The strength in these women coming forward, which could not have been easy, cannot be overlooked. The victims supplied vital information that helped us solve this case. And to the public, I would encourage anyone that has any information that could assist us with this ongoing investigation, please contact TPS or the OPP. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, Superintendent, can you speak to the complexities of a multi-jurisdictional investigation and just how sensitive, I know you mentioned that, how sensitive those investigations are with regards to sexual assault allegations?
Well, the sexual assault itself, I mean, it is difficult for the survivors to participate. It's not lost on us. But I can tell you that certainly in the last decade or so, policing has, we have really changed the way we do business in regards to investigation of sexual assaults, and we've really changed the way we do business in the way we deal with multi-jurisdictional. There is a complete sharing of information from the get-go. There is a process involved called a multi-jurisdictional, where we do have linked cases. The province will appoint an overseer, that's a multi-jurisdictional major case manager. And that's put in place so that we can share information seamlessly. That came after Archie Campbell's review, as we all know, after Bernardo. And so that has grown over the last 2 decades to the point where it really is a seamless exchange of information. We are, as soon as we have a link, we notify them, and we have operated pretty much as one team since we received the link almost 2 years ago now.
So that starts when you have evidence that there has been crimes committed in different jurisdictions. Is that correct?
That's correct, and in this case, it would be DNA. So the DNA linked, and so that tells us we have 2 cases that are multi-jurisdictional, and so we move from there. And so we become essentially 2 parts of one team.
You mentioned, Superintendent, that a license plate led to the break in this case.
Yes.
Can you speak more about that?
Well, as we spoke to our victims, our survivors gave us information. Each one gave us points that moved us towards who we were looking at. And in one of the cases, one of the victims was able to collect a license plate.
When
So
was
Can you
that?
tell us when you brought him down?
So yes, so Mr. Patel has been in custody since November. The sexual assault was on November 1st, the last of the 4. He was arrested shortly thereafter and he's before the courts currently. He was on house arrest for a period of time. Once we made the link to the other 3 sexual assaults, he was brought into custody again. He's actually in bail court currently as we speak.
The last of the 4 sex assaults was in November of this year. Was it that alleged victim who was able to provide you with the license plate?
Yes.
And then
And
from
sorry,
there you
this
got the DNA sample that you didn't have?
I'm not going to speak to that part. Okay.
the November assault, the last one of the 4, this was the one at the Rebel nightclub, or from the victim from the Rebel nightclub?
I'm not going to speak to certain specifics of where exactly, but yes, it's public knowledge. He was arrested on shortly thereafter. It was early in November 1st, so Halloween into the next day.
So just to confirm, because I'm confused. The picture, that picture is the same guy that was arrested in November?
Yes, it is. And as you can see, our composites they're pretty good. Our victims did an incredible job.
What was it like when you told these victims, especially the ones from a few years earlier, that you made this arrest?
I didn't tell them. Those fine investigators hiding behind you did. And we are very careful. We're mindful that not every person reacts to a sexual assault in the same manner. It's the reason we waited to today to be able to let the public know that this man was off the streets. We wanted to make sure we were able to reach each survivor and speak to her personally. I'm not going to speak to how they feel about it. I think anything I say would be diminished in actually how they would feel personally. I can't imagine.
The composites are remarkable to the guy. For those that don't know, can you just explain how that sort of takes place with regards to putting a composite together like that? I mean, that's a phenomenal picture.
Yes, it is. As you can see, our composite drawers, each of our agencies have different people who do this as part of their work. The victims describe for them what they remember, and of course, they have this incredible ability to draw what the victims tells them. And as you can see, they're pretty bang on.
Superintendent, so when it was only after the arrest at Rebel nightclub that then you were able to do the DNA comparison. Is that correct?
I'm not going to speak to what we've compared.
Sorry, this may be the same question, but can you go through the process of the 6 weeks between November 1st and the extra charges being laid yesterday, or sorry, on the 12th?
We have, evidence was gleaned from that sexual assault. That evidence was treated as we treat all DNA evidence, and then we were given what we would refer to as a hit, which connected it to the previous 3.
I mean, if you didn't have that license plate number, how do you think this investigation would have played out?
I don't know. I don't know if we had some pretty good legs on the last one, and we were working towards, we might have got to Mr. Patel by now, and we might not have. But I can tell you that the reason we are standing here today, the reason he is in custody, is because that survivor had the wherewithal to capture a license plate.
Is this guy known to police before?
Not to Toronto Police, no.
To other police services?
I can't, he has no convictions.
No convictions, but
No convictions.
has
And I can't
perhaps-
speak, it's other agencies, so I won't speak to what their investigations are.
Those survivors going forward, as you said, really are heroes because these guys don't stop for the most part. So these 4 women perhaps have stopped this man from doing this.
100%. This gentleman, and I use that term incredibly loosely, was escalating in violence each and every time he was involved in a sexual assault. He also was learning, I won't speak to how, but each time he was learning. He was learning how to be better at it. He was learning how to be more elusive. And so each one of those victims coming forward really were the stepstones to getting him. Without them coming forward, there is no doubt in my mind that Mr. Patel would continue to offend and in fact escalate in violence each and every time.
He would have killed somebody.
I can't speak to that.
Why was he in Collingwood? There were 3 assaults in Toronto, 1 in Collingwood. Was he living there at the time? Was he just around? Or?
So that part we don't know. So that's when I speak to people who, if they could turn their mind back, now that Mr. Patel is custody, we did stand up here a number of years ago when we first connected the cases, to turn their minds now back to that time, and now that they have a face to place there in Collingwood on New Year's Eve, what year was that?
2017.
So 2017 New Year's Eve, now that you have a picture, turn your mind back. Bars, restaurants, there was a lot of people in Collingwood on New Year's Eve. I would ask you to turn your mind back to that time and see if you remember him being there. It's very important for us.
What would you have to say to somebody who is watching or reading or listening to the coverage of this story and has been abused but has not come forward and has perhaps information that they don't know might be relevant, but they're afraid to share it for whatever reason? What would you have to say to them?
My opinion is there's strength in numbers, and if they're brave enough to come forward, there are services out there that there's the Ontario Victim Services. There are people and resources that they can use, including through our different police services to do that. And like I said, I think we get his photo out there and get people talking about it. I think his strength in numbers will be able to possibly identify more victims.
I'm sorry, what were the dates of the 4 assaults?
Yeah.
We have the 28th of July. We have the 1st of January 28th of July 2015. 1st of January 2017. 2nd of March 2017. And we have allegations of July 15, 2019, and then November 1st, 2019.
Sorry, July 15th, what year, sorry?
2019.
2019, and then November 1st of this year, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Detective Inspector, when
But-
you talk about, I'm sorry, Mr. Joe.
So I just wanted, just to clear up the background, just to be sure, which of those was an allegation? Which of those dates was an allegation?
I'll clarify these after those.
Sure.
Um, Like, this case is really one that speaks to the power of DNA. Here you have these DNA samples for years. What do you say about how DNA has changed the work you do as far as investigators?
I think it adds credibility to our investigations in today's day and age. You know, we've evolved over the decades to where, we didn't have that technology or resources available, including the avenues of information sharing and the databases that we use now. And I think the credibility to the case, where if you look back to even 20 years ago, you relied a lot on eyewitness testimony, and in today, we concentrate more on the scientific approach and that sort of link that they'll.
About have potentially other victims out there. You're not just talking about women who may have been full penetrated with intercourse. That could be any form of sexual assault that you'd be interested in talking to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speak in a general sense, when it comes to this kind of behavior, you talked about escalating. Is that a common thing that you see in people who engage in this kind of behavior and it's allowed to continue?
I can't really comment directly on that. I'm not an expert in that field. But what
As an investigator covering looking at these cases,
yeah.
surely this
Well,
happens.
absolutely. What we do know so far to this date that they have been violent acts and they have been escalating.
Have they also been accelerating, looking at these dates? Have they been becoming more frequent from this one suspect?
Well, with the information that we know of, they look pretty consistent and he's been pretty persistent. Yeah.
All of your services, Toronto Police Service, O.P.P, you all have agencies in place to help these women go through this process. They're not on their own, basically, when the arrest is made, correct? You guys have got social agencies and people in place that will help these women deal with it.
Absolutely, yes. And speaking to, the evolution of the way we investigate these serious crimes now is it's victim-centric. So, not only do we concentrate on prosecuting the perpetrator, more so these days, we look at the health and well-being and the preparation for our victims. And we do have those services and resources in place.
There may be more assaults that you're unaware of in between these 4 or 5 dates that you are aware of?
Not at this point, but we're hoping that as a result of today, that we're hoping that there are no further assaults, but if that's the case, our work is just beginning now.
But no other active investigations regarding Mr. Patel?
Just the current ones that we have now. Yeah.
Congratulations on
Thank you very much.
Okay, I want to clarify some of the dates. I read one incorrectly. So we have the 28th of July, 2015, in the Dufferin and Rogers area in Toronto. Then on January 1st, 2017, we have Birch Street and 2nd Street in Collingwood. Third case was July 15, 2019. That was Eglinton Avenue West and Jane Street, back in Toronto. And finally, the culmination of this was November 1st, 2019, Polson Street and Cherry Street, again in Toronto. Thank you very much for coming. That concludes today's conference.